Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another Empowered podcast episode. I am your host, Alkistis, and today we're diving into something that I believe is one of the most important lessons in life: knowing when to pivot, embracing your true self, and learning through setbacks. It's not always easy to step away from the path we thought we were supposed to be on. In fact, it's one of the hardest things I've had to learn, especially after big moments like Dragon's Den. But what I've discovered through my own journey is that those moments that feel like failures aren't failures at all. They're lessons that bring us closer to who we truly are and what we're meant to do. So whether you're in a place where you feel stuck, confused, or questioning what's next, this episode is for you. We're going to talk about understanding your strengths, accepting your weaknesses, learning from setbacks, and how embracing your true design can lead you to the most authentic version of yourself. Let's start by talking about pivoting, one of the most misunderstood yet powerful things you can do in your life and business. We're often conditioned to think that once we're on a path, we need to stay there, no matter how we feel or how many signs point us in other directions. But what I've learned is that pivoting isn't about giving up or failing. It's about evolving. For those of you who are new here, I just want to tell you a few things about me. I'm Alkistis and I was born and raised in Athens, Greece. But life took me on a different and interesting journey. I moved to London, then to New York, where I spent almost 10 years. When eventually I returned to Greece, something incredible happened. I found my partner, the love of my life, who became my greatest teacher, and we had two beautiful daughters together. Our second daughter was born with sensitive skin, and as a new mother and during COVID, I was determined to make sure everything that touched her was safe. So one day I started making soap in my kitchen just to know exactly what's inside. What started as a small crazy idea grew into a business that began to spread across the world. I started selling my products in all corners. Then 2 years on, I got a call from a Greek TV channel that Dragon's Den would premiere in Greece, and they asked me to join. I was terrified. The idea of being on TV, putting myself out there and being so public, it was so scary and it just wasn't me. I stepped back and I declined, but they persisted. Something inside me shifted and I realized that this wasn't just about me. One of the directors of the channel told me we have very few women participating on the show, and it would be such an impactful thing if you as a female entrepreneur showed up. I swear that just hit me so much. And I thought I would do it and I will show up to help other women step out of their comfort zones, just like what I was about to do myself. I also believe it's all about leading by example, so I can't say things that I wouldn't put myself into first. Little did I know, Dragon's Den would become one of the most painful experiences of my life. I've never been so prepared for anything. I worked endlessly on my pitch, refining every single detail, convinced that I would walk out of that room with the investment, the prize, and be an example for a successful female entrepreneur. But things didn't go as planned. In fact, they couldn't have gone more different than I had imagined. I was devastated. It wasn't just about not getting the deal. It felt like my entire sense of self-worth had been crushed. I went back into my cave. I wanted to disappear. It took me almost a year, maybe even longer, to recover from what felt like the deepest failure. And you know what scared me the most? The idea that one day my kids would find out. They're only 6 and 4 now, but I couldn't stop thinking, what if they figure out what happened? Will they think their mom is a fraud? One day I had an aha moment that changed everything. Lucia, my older daughter, came up to me and casually mentioned that her friend had seen me on TV. My heart sank. I wanted to vanish right there. I didn't know how to respond, so I ignored her and acted like I didn't hear it. But in that moment, I realized I had lost an opportunity. I had the chance to tell her the hard truth, that life isn't about succeeding every time. It's about learning through setbacks and showing up, even if it seems like the hardest thing to do. Dragon's Den taught me one of the most invaluable lessons. It doesn't matter what others think of you. Only you know the growth and the learnings that come when you venture down the path of the unknown. Today I can honestly say my so-called biggest fear was failing. I'm so grateful for it. It brought me here to this space where I'm opening up to you, sharing my story vulnerably in hopes that even one of you might feel what I didn't feel back then. That it's okay. It's okay to stumble. It's okay to feel lost, to question yourself. And most importantly, it's okay to not have all the answers. If Dragon's Den taught me anything, it's that we need to embrace the moments where things don't go as planned, because that's where the real growth happens. So here I am today sharing this journey with you because I want you to know that failure doesn't define you, it shapes you. It helps you path the way into your most authentic self. So this experience taught me that failure doesn't define you. What defines you is how you rise from it, how you grow, and what you take away from these experiences. And more importantly, it led me to my mission, one that I hold close to my heart today. My mission became clear: to empower people through vulnerability. I realized that so much of what holds us back in life is the fear of showing our real selves. We're scared of being judged, of not being enough, or failing. But the truth is, vulnerability is where our true power lies. When we allow ourselves to be seen, failures and all, that's when real growth happens. That's when we connect with others on a deeper level. That experience led me to understand the value of community. It's not just about the wins or the successes. It's about having people around you who support you, who lift you, who are there to remind you that it's okay to stumble. Community is everything. It's where we find strength, not just in ourselves, but in each other. And that's why I'm here sharing this story with you, because I believe in the power of vulnerability, of showing up as your true self and creating community that supports one another. So if there's anything I want you to take from this story, I hope it's this. Don't be afraid to pivot, to change directions, to fail, because every step, every misstep is leading you closer to understand who you truly are and what you're capable of. And remember, you don't have to go through it alone. Community is everything, and we are in this together. So let's go back to our topic for today's episode, which is pivoting. It's not just about changing directions in your business or career. It's about reinventing yourself from the inside out. And that's what I had to do. I had to take a hard look at my strengths and weaknesses. I realized that for so long I have been trying to push myself into a vision of success that wasn't truly aligned with who I was. In many ways, I had been chasing an idea of perfection, thinking I had to be this flawless entrepreneur with everything figured out. But after Dragon's Den, I was forced to confront the parts of myself that were broken, the parts that weren't as strong as I wanted them to be, the limiting beliefs that had been creeping around in these past years. It wasn't an easy process. I had to peel back layers of self-doubt and fear. I had to admit that my confidence had taken a hit and that I didn't have all the answers. But I also realized that this was an opportunity to grow, to pivot in a way that wasn't just about my business, but about my entire identity. It was the time to reinvent myself, one day at a time. I started small, gentle affirmations. Every morning I'd tell myself, it's okay not to have it all figured out. And you're growing through this, even on the hard days. Some days those affirmations felt powerful, like they could lift me up and help me see the future. Other days they felt hollow, like I was just saying them without them truly meaning something to me inside of me. But I kept showing up for myself because that's the only way you move forward, by taking small, actionable steps, consistent steps, even when it feels like you're not getting anywhere. And even on the hardest days, the one thing that kept me going was the community we had built through Alchemia. It was this incredible network of people who believed in what we were doing, who found value in the products and the message we were sharing. I would see their stories, their feedback, their support, and it reminded me that there was something bigger than me. The community was fuel. It was my reminder that I wasn't in this alone, and that even though I was going through a personal reinvention, I had people standing beside me. The thing is that healing and reinvention doesn't happen overnight. It's not like one day you wake up and all these pieces have magically fallen into place. Reinvention is messy, it's process. And sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But the key is to keep showing up for yourself, to keep pivoting, not just as a business, but actually your mindset, to keep accepting both your strengths and your weaknesses, and to recognize that both are part of who you are. That's where the real pivot happens. It's not just about changing your external circumstances, but about changing the way you see yourself. I had to learn that my weakness didn't define me, but they did give me a deeper understanding of what I needed to work on. And my strengths, they were always there, waiting for me to tap into them again. The beauty of this journey is that even when you feel broken, even when limiting beliefs creep in, there is always the possibility to rebuild. You have to be willing to take it one day at a time, to be gentle with yourself, and to trust that every pivot, every step forward is bringing you closer to the most authentic version of yourself. If you're listening to this and you feel like you've hit a wall, or like you're stuck in a place where you don't know how to move forward, I want you to know this: it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to not have everything figured out. What's important is that you recognize the power in pivoting, not just in your business or career, but in how you approach yourself. Be willing to pivot away from the idea of perfection and instead embrace the journey of reinvention, however slow or messy it might be. As I approach my 35th birthday this week, I've been reflecting a lot on the journey so far. And if there's one thing I've come to terms with, it's this: I still don't have all the answers. In fact, I'll probably never have. And that's okay. Life is constantly evolving, and so am I. What I've learned is that embracing change rather than resisting it has been one of the most powerful lessons of my life. And as I turn 35, I want to share a few lessons that have become deeply rooted in me over the years. 1. Embrace change. Change is inevitable, and it's one of the few constants in life. There have been times where I tried to resist it, clinging to old ways or ideas that no longer served me. But now I realize that change is not something to fear, it's something to lean into. Change is where growth happens. It's where you learn who you are and what you're capable of. At 35, I'm learning that the more I embrace change, the more I allow myself to evolve into who I'm truly meant to be. Number 2, show up even when you can't. There have been so many days where I didn't feel like I had the energy, the motivation, or the confidence to show up, whether it was for my business, my family, or myself. But what I've learned is that showing up when it feels impossible is half the battle. Those days where you feel like you can't are often the days that matter the most. So even when it's hard, even when it feels like you have nothing left to give, show up for yourself. That's where strength is built. Number 3, make small steps daily. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the big picture, by the goals that seem so far. But I've learned that progress doesn't come from giant leaps. It comes from small, consistent steps every single day. Some days, those steps will feel insignificant, but they add up. The key is to keep moving forward, no matter how small the step. Progress is progress, and over time, those small actions will lead to a big change. Let's move to number 4. Boundaries. This has been a tough one for me, but if I've learned the hard way that boundaries are essentials. Whether it's in your personal life or your business, having boundaries is how you protect your energy and your inner peace. It's okay to say no. It's okay to put yourself first. Boundaries aren't walls. They're the foundation of self-respect and self-care. Learning to set and uphold my boundaries has been one of the most empowering things I've done. It's something I'll continue to prioritize. As I reflect on my journey, one of the most challenging lessons I've had to learn and continue to practice is the importance of setting boundaries. Growing up in a large family, it wasn't something that came naturally to me. In fact, it was quite the opposite. A family setting where there were so many voices, opinions, and expectations, I often felt like I had to stay quiet, go with the flow, and accept things as they were. Speaking up or setting boundaries felt almost impossible, like I'd be disturbing the peace. For years, I believed that staying silent and keeping my feelings to myself was the safest route. I didn't want to cause confliction or disappoint anyone. But as I've grown older, especially as I approach 35, I've realized that this mentality was something I had to unlearn. It wasn't serving me, it was holding me back. I wasn't respecting myself or my needs, and I was letting my peace be constantly interrupted because I didn't know how to say no or stand firm in my own space. Unlearning that habit of silence has been a game changer. It hasn't been easy, and sometimes it still feels uncomfortable. Saying what you truly feel, especially when it's hard or goes against the expectations for others, can be daunting. But here's what I've discovered. Once you start setting boundaries, even if it's difficult at first, it works wonders. Boundaries protect your energy, your mental well-being, and your peace. They remind you that your needs and feelings are just as important as everyone else's. I've learned to say no without feeling guilty. I've learned to express when something doesn't sit right with me instead of just quietly accepting it. And most importantly, I've learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's an act of self-respect. It's been one of the hardest lessons for me, but it's also been one of the most empowering. Once you learn to say what you feel, even when it's hard, you reclaim your power. You show up for yourself in a way that allows you to live more authentically and peacefully. If you are someone like me, and have struggled with this, let me tell you this: begin setting those boundaries. First, you might feel awkward or even wrong, but over time, you'll notice the difference it makes in your life. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to protect your peace and always, always stand for your deepest values. Another important lesson I've learned is number 5. Accept that you will lose people on the way and gain others. As I've grown and changed, I've realized that not everyone will be able to come with me on this journey. And that's okay. It's natural to lose people as you evolve. Friends, colleagues, family, even relationships that once felt so solid. But every time you lose someone, you also gain new people who are aligned with the new person you are becoming. Growth often comes with shedding, and it can be painful. But letting go, you make space for new connections that support who you are now. I think of what Michelle Obama said about altitude in her recent book. The higher you rise, the lonelier it can get. Not everyone will make it to where you're going. The journey of growth and self-discovery often means outgrowing people, situations, and places that were once comfortable. The altitude changes, and with it, some people can no longer walk beside you because they can't handle the air up there. It can feel isolating, like you're losing pieces of your past. But the truth is, when you shed those old layers, you make space for new connections that better reflect who you are now. Letting go is never easy. There's a part of you that holds old memories, the comfort, and even the hope that things could go back to how they were. But growth comes with shedding, and every time you let go of someone or something that no longer serves you, you make space for relationships and opportunities that truly support your evolution. I've experienced this firsthand. There have been relationships that once felt unbreakable, but faded as I became more aligned with my true self. It's a painful process to see people drift away or to realize that you no longer resonate with each other. But with that space, I've welcomed new connections, people who see me, understand me, and support the journey I'm on now. And I've found that these relationships are deeper, more meaningful, and more aligned where I'm headed. The truth is that growth is lonely at times. As you rise, not everyone will be able to keep up, and that might feel uncomfortable. I remember back in my early days when I was feeling very lost and insecure. I had so many people around me. One of the hardest lessons I've learned on this journey of self-discovery and growth is that many people are there when you're at your lowest, but as soon as you become who you're truly meant to be, many of them fade into the shadows. It's not something I expected or even understood at times. When you're in a place of struggle, feeling lost or broken, people seem to be more present, offering comfort or sharing in the familiarity of your pain. But the moment you're starting to rise, stepping into your true self, many of those same people begin to pull away. It was a very sad season for me. It felt like I was mourning people, friends, connections, who I thought would be by my side forever. I didn't realize at the time that my growth was making them uncomfortable. As I began to evolve, it wasn't that they stopped caring about me, but my change made them uneasy. I was no longer the version of myself they had known, the one who perhaps made them feel safe in their own struggles because they felt heard and related, or even, I don't know, I guess I still have to work a little bit on that. But as I started to rise, to heal, and to embrace who I was becoming, they didn't know how to handle the new altitude I was reaching. For a long time, I fought against it. I wanted to keep this relationship alive, to bring them along with me. But the reality is, not everyone can handle seeing you step into your potential. Some people find comfort in who you used to be because it mirrors their own limitations. When you start breaking out of that mold, it can make them uncomfortable, even if it's unintentional. And that's when I had to learn the painful truth. Not everyone is meant to stay in your journey as you evolve. It is a type of mourning in a way. You grieve not just for the people, but for the versions of yourself that those relationships were tied to. I felt like I was losing parts of myself along with those connections. But once I accepted that it's a natural part of growth, I started to become more at ease with it. I realized that the more I embraced change, the more I made space for the right people to enter my life, the ones who aligned with the person I was becoming, not the person I used to be. Still, even now, there are moments when people from my past will mention and resurface, bring up darker parts of my history, the struggles, the failures, the pain. It's almost as if they find comfort in reminding me of who I once was. Perhaps because it reassures them that I haven't completely left that version of myself behind, or that the person they once knew still exists in some ways. I'm not sure. And while I honor my past and the journey it took me to get there, I've also learned not to let those shadows pull me back. It's a strange feeling when people cling to the version of who you used to be that for you no longer exists. But I've come to understand that their discomfort is not mine to carry. It's part of their journey, not mine. My responsibility is continue growing, to embrace the person I'm becoming, and to surround myself with those who can support and celebrate that growth. So let's move to our next chapter, which is number 6. Don't stick to an idea just because you thought it had to work. This lesson has been one of the most challenging for me to fully embrace, especially as an entrepreneur. When you pour so much time, energy, and passion to an idea, a project, or a path, it becomes a part of you. It feels like letting go is the exact same thing as failing. And I've held on to things, concepts, projects far longer than I should have, just because I was convinced they had to work. I've invested so much that the thought of walking away felt like I was abandoning a part of myself. But the reality I've learned is this: not everything is meant to work out the way you envisioned it. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you're adaptable. It means you're open to change and pivoting in ways that better serve you and your mission. As entrepreneurs, as creators, or even as just humans, we evolve. What felt right at one point may not feel aligned anymore, and it's crucial to acknowledge that rather than forcing it to continue. Holding on to something just because once you believed in it can hold you back from stepping into what's next. I'm in a space right now where I'm reevaluating everything. I'm open to considering new ways of telling my story, new ways of connecting with people, and new ways of serving my mission. I'm in a transitioning mode where I don't have all the answers, but I know that the path forward isn't necessarily the same as it was once. Something that felt like the only way forward a few years ago might not feel aligned today, and that is okay. For example, when I first started Alchemia, I truly believed that the only way I could fulfill my mission of self-care was through skincare. Skincare was the language I spoke to my community, the method I used to help people connect with themselves. And for a long time, it was right. But now I feel my mission is expanding in ways I can't fully understand yet. It's not just about skincare anymore. It's about the holistic self-care in all its forms. It's about the emotional wellness, mental wellness, and empowering others to embrace themselves on every level. This podcast, for example, wasn't something I planned far in advance. It wasn't a strategic move or a business plan. It was purely intuitive. It felt natural. I followed that feeling even without fully knowing why or where it would lead. And that's a perfect example of how I'm learning to stay open to new ways of expressing my mission. It's about being willing to pivot, to try something new, to let go of all ideas that may have served me at a time, but no longer fit where I am now. I'm still not entirely sure where this journey is taking me. I'm still in that process of figuring it out, of expanding into this new version of myself and my mission. But I've learned that clinging to something just because it once worked isn't the answer. We have to stay open. We have to be willing to adapt, and we have to recognize when it's time to move on to something new. If you're in a place where you're holding on to an idea, a project, a concept, a brand that no longer feels aligned, I encourage you to consider letting it go. It's not giving up, it's creating space for what's next. Be brave enough to pivot, to jump into the next idea that feels more aligned and correct with who you are today. Because in letting go, you make room for the things that are truly meant for you, and those things might surprise you in ways you never imagined. Let's move on to number 7. Be the person you look up to. For so long, I thought I needed to look outside myself for inspiration, for validation. I admired people who seemed to have it all together, who embodied the kind of success, grace, and strength I aspired to. But as I approach 35, I've realized that the most important person I should look up to is me. Not because I have it all figured out or because I'm perfect, but because every day I'm striving to be a better version of myself. Kinder, stronger, more authentic. Each day I ask myself, am I showing up as the person I aspire to be? It's not about being flawless, it's about showing up, even when it's hard. It's about making decisions that align with my values, and it's about continuing to grow, to evolve, to push myself forward towards the person I know I'm capable of becoming. Learned that I don't need to seek for external validation. I've learned to gently and slowly love and accept myself one day at a time. An exercise that helped me get into this place was to visualize all the people I admire. I sat down and thought deeply about what it was that lit me up about them, what inspired me. Was it their resilience, their compassion, their success? I spent time educating myself on their journeys, reading their books, watching their interviews, studying their stories. What became clear to me was that every single person I admired had one common denominator. They all struggled to get where they are today. Most of them had faced hardships, challenging childhoods, financial struggles, failures, and yet they kept on going. There's a certain comfort in realizing that those we admire didn't have an easy road to success. Their journeys were messy, filled with obstacles and setbacks. But that's what made them who they are. They didn't wait for someone to give them permission or perfect path to follow. They created their own path, often against the odds. And I continue to remind myself every day that I can do the same. So instead of constantly looking outward for role models, I started asking myself, how can I be the person I look up to? What qualities do I admire in others? And how can I embody those qualities in my life? It's not about copying someone else's journey, but about finding inspiration in their resilience and applying that to my own story. It's also been very important for me to understand that the people I admire weren't born with all the answers. They learned through trial and error, through failure and persistence. And the same goes for me, for you, and for all of us. Being the person you look up to doesn't mean you need to have everything figured out. It means you need to keep showing up, keep learning, and keep pushing forward towards your goals, even when things get tough. The key takeaway here is that you are capable of being the person you admire. You don't need to search for inspiration outside yourself. The strength, the courage, the determination, it's already within you. Yes, look to others for guidance, but always remember that you have the power to embody the qualities you admire in others. So next time you catch yourself looking at someone else and wishing you had what they have, ask yourself this instead: how can I show up today as the person I aspire to be? Focus on your growth, your journey, and trust that you have everything you need to become the person you look up to. The journey may not be easy, but it's one worth taking. So as we reach to the end of this episode, I want to move to the last lesson learned, which is number 7. At 35, I've had to come to peace with the fact that I am not and will never be perfect. Honestly, it's such a relief to finally let go of that pressure. I have weaknesses just like everyone else, and that's perfectly okay. For years, I've struggled accepting the parts of me that weren't good enough by my own standards. I'd beat myself up for not being stronger in certain areas, for not having all the skills I thought I needed to be successful. But over time, I've learned that it's not about being good at everything. It's about embracing who you are, the whole of you, including the flaws and the limitations. What's been even more powerful, though, is realizing that while I may have weaknesses, I also have incredible strengths. We all do. We all have gifts, talents, and abilities that are unique to us. The key is to focus on what you do well and build on that. Accept your limitations, but don't let them define you. Lean into your strengths. Use them as your fuel to propel you forward. For so long, I fought with myself about what my true gifts were. I kept thinking, what's my thing? What's this special skill that I'm here to serve? I've heard it so many times from people. You're so great at whatever you do. Sounds funny, right? I mean, sounds like a joke. But the truth is that it was very confusing. Sure, I knew I was great at making things with my hands. I could draw, cook, knit, name it. I could even fix things at home. I could pretty much create anything if I put my mind to it. But I kept thinking, what's my thing? What's that special skill or talent that makes me unique? For years, I fought with myself about what my true gifts were. I felt like I needed to have one clear path, one standout talent that would define me. But the truth is, the moment I let go of all the conditioning and expectations that were planted in me from an early age about who I was supposed to be, I started to see myself for who I truly am. The reality is my gifts have always been there in front of me. Even from a young age, I've always been curious, always creative, always open to new experiences. I was the kid who asked way too many questions, who needed to know how things worked and why they existed the way they did. I didn't just want to learn, I wanted to explore new ideas and share them with the people around me. I was fascinated with the world, and even more so by how people connect with each other. As I grew older, I started to realize that my strength wasn't fitting into a specific mold or following one predetermined path. My strength was my curiosity, my creativity, and my ability to hold space for others. I've always had these gifts for connecting with people in meaningful ways. I could sit down with someone and before I knew it, they were sharing their deepest thoughts and secrets with me, knowing that I would hold them in confidence and without judgment. That ability to make people feel safe, seen, and heard has been something I've carried with me into everything I do. whether it's through this podcast, my business, or my personal relationships. So here I am today celebrating my 35th birthday with you, this beautiful community that we've built together. As I reflect on the past, I see how I've learned to not only accept my weaknesses, but also to truly celebrate my strengths. My strength isn't in being perfect, it's in being real. It's in being open to staying curious about the world and the people around me. And that's my message for you today. Don't get caught in the things that you're not good at. We all have those things, and that's okay. Instead, focus on what you're good at, what lights you up. What have you always done naturally without even realize it? Those are your gifts. Accept your limitations, but don't let them hold you back. Let your strengths be your guide and use them to make the impact only you can make. As we close out this special episode, I want to thank you for being here, for taking this time for yourself, and for being part of this incredible journey with me. It means so much to me that you are here listening, reflecting, and embracing your own path of growth and self-discovery. To show my gratitude, I want to offer something very special for you, my amazing listeners. As a thank you for being part of this community and investing in yourself, I'm sharing a special code for you to use for 30% off Alchemia website, site-wide. That is www.alchemiasoaps.com. Whether it's skincare or a product to support your self-care rituals, I want you to experience something that helps you feel grounded and nurtured. Use code EmpowHERed35 at checkout to receive 30% off everything on the site. If there's one thing I hope you take away from today's episode, it's this. Embrace who you are fully. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your quirks, your flaws, they all make you, you. And you are more than enough just as you are. Remember, we don't have to have it all figured out. Life is a process of evolving, of learning from our experiences, and constantly rediscovering who we are. So let's commit to showing up for ourselves, accepting the things we can't change, and leaning into the unique gifts we all have to offer. Thank you for joining me in this special day, for listening and being part of this journey. If you found this episode valuable, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please comment and let me know what was your biggest takeaway, what you felt, or if this inspired you in any way. I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need to hear these words. And as always, please subscribe, leave a comment, or send me your thoughts. I love hearing from you. Till next time, embrace the journey, trust the process, and most importantly, keep showing up for yourself. You've got this, and I'm so grateful to have you along for the ride. Thank you for being here. See you in our next episode. Till next time, take care.